Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's August 15th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and turned out to be a great trading day. We had this big trend down, and I got a couple of emails people been through early today, and I can see why, because you only had to catch one or two of these, and several of them had some big runners too. So, and notice that you had your first leg down from there to there, and then once we started lower again right here, you can see we pretty much, we might have went a couple of ticks further than that measured move, and then we had two leg correction, and I don't have it on here, but you can see there's leg one, there's leg two, and we didn't quite get a measured move, but it's real close. But we really went sideways first, and once we went higher, I looked for a measured move, and you can see we went a little bit higher than that, but this was not a real clear channel where you get consistent lows or consistent highs at the same place every time. You can find your lows and your highs, but they're not consistent enough to say, where you're going to get a real clear midpoint and measured move and so forth. But that still gets you in the ballpark right there. And you can see I just measured this tier, and then once we started going higher. But once we got up here, it turned out this turned out just to be a two-tiered channel working up. You can see the trend line right at this brown channel. So, but first it was just sideways, and then it kind of trended into it with a slight upward bias. But prices are still swinging above and below the EMA, so you could still pretty much trade this either way. So you'll see that. But really, right into here, it looked like we were still in this play in this channel, and then once we kept on going higher. Really, you needed to draw your trend line right here, and it would have fit off the highs. And you can see when it came back, it fit perfectly across there. So quite a bit of volume today, quite a bit of volatility, especially early on. It got a little, there's still a lot of volume in here, and they're swinging back and forth. The market's just kind of undecided. It was probably a little overdone to the downside, but yet we couldn't muster up enough buying to take it higher. So you can see we ended up getting a break of this brown channel, moved to a new high for before the close. And we continued higher. There's another little trend working up there, but lots of trades today. Easy pickings, really, especially down to about right in here. Then it got a little questionable. Once you had these two measured legs, or once you were really right into here, you had to be careful about going short anymore. You needed a good reason. But yet at the same time, I'd be a little bit leery about going long until we had a sure kind of pattern of a reversal or something. So anyway, I'm going to back out. We'll talk about the trades. There's quite a few of them. It's just going to take a few minutes today, so I'm going to get moving and get this behind us. So let me move this out of the way. That was your measured move, basically from that point right there to this point. And notice that's where we ended up with the support later in the day, right at that measured move. But when I came in, we'd been working down, and it's obvious this is a two-tiered channel. You got a perfect measured equal distance bounce right there, and you're working higher. And I was a little leery of this. It's a second entry short. It's right at the EMA. It actually broke higher and turned and went out the other side. And it is a lower high than this, but we already had this short-term trend. We already had a break and a new low. A lot of times you get two legs, but we weren't back to the key entry point, which is over here, and we weren't at the midline. We were kind of in the middle in no man's land, but we are at the EMA, and so you might take that one. It's a little bit aggressive because it's a little unclear. It's not other than being at the EMA, it's not what I'd call it a key entry point. So I was a little leery of it. But then we got a lower high here. And so I like this one. And this is really, you could treat this like a failed second entry long too, because notice this, you pull back first entry, pull back second entry, it fails. So it doesn't really matter what your signal bar looks like. Your stop would have had to, let me make this a little bigger. Your stop would have had to go above this bar, but your entry would have been one tick under this one. So because it broke below this bar before it did this one. So, but your stop has to go above the high of the swing, so it'd have to go above that one. You do get another failed break higher right there, but it's not really. I mean, if you started from here, you could say it was a failed second entry long, but you'd really be off on your count because this is not a new high. Your last new high was here, so and it is a little bit close to these lows, so I probably wouldn't take it for that reason anyway. And I wouldn't go long yet here. This is very tempting. It's a double test of this level, but we haven't had a break of this trend line. We're not even back to that trend line. And there's enough room to maybe ride one back. So you might consider, I just think it's really risky after this big leg down, because it wouldn't, wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't try to make another leg down if we get through this support. And the thing is, you can see we're making lower highs here, and there's not a real clear low point here. It's right in this area, of course, but notice how we're bouncing at different levels. It's not, you want it consistently bouncing at the same level when it's real clear, and it's just not real clear there. So even though you could probably argue for that to be green, I wouldn't take that trade. And of course, there's two legs up and back to this the closes on that previous high. And so now you've got one test, two tests, a double test of that level. That's not the bearish bar in the world. It is a second entry short as well. Notice that new low, and you get a first entry, and then you move up. It's two legs up to that high. It's still a little ways from the EMA, relatively small bar. I'd probably take that one, but it's definitely a little aggressive. So you get a lower high here, and notice this is the first break of this trend line. So we're probably going to push down here and try to make a new low. And we actually get a lower high here right off that same line. Nice bearish bar. Go short. You got enough room to get out there. Go short on that. There's a little breakout pullback short here, but it doesn't break higher, and you got to go short at the low of the day. I don't recommend that really. You move on down. You get a failed second entry short right here, but again, it's not a very good bar. By the time it gets over here, it's got a little lower high, and you've got a double bottom. Then it kind of breaks out and comes back, and it confirms this trend line. And it's really at that trend line right there too. So you got kind of confluence there, and it's a big bearish bar. So I like that one. Again, it's at the short. It's real close. You could argue for either one of these to be green, but because this trend line's in play, and you got this other trend line playing too, you got a little bit of extra, resistance at your back there. So that's the reason I played those two. The fact that we're moving this far low again means we're probably headed to a measured move down, or attempted a measured move down. And with it being right off that trend line, you can see the lighter blue. Let's just make it a different color to make it a little easier to see. We'll make it, well, I don't know if that's kind of contrasting enough. We'll make it pink. You can't hardly see it. We'll make it a little thicker. Now you can see a little bit better, but you can see that trend line is definitely in play, even down here. You've been a little bit away from the EMA for a while down here, so you're kind of getting in no man's land, so I wouldn't be taking any more trades down there. And I wouldn't be trying to pick a long either, especially not before we get a measured move. Then we start going sideways in this little channel, and you get a failed break out of it. It actually breaks higher there, turns, and goes out the other side. I'd have a sell stop right there. And that's really two legs back to the EMA. It's the first break of this trend line, and we still don't quite have a measured move down yet. So I like that one. That's another nice little easy trade. And then we come back, draw your trend line off those two swings. That's not a very good signal bar. But then you get a failed second entry long, confirms the trend line, go short right there. And this is a good example of why we only go for 4 ticks, because this move got just enough for you to scalp out, and then it bounced and it went 1 tick higher and would have taken you out before it went lower again. So that's a good example of why, 4 ticks is the magic number. Don't try to go for more. And, I hear people send me emails all the time and they're shooting for 3 ticks. Don't try to go for 3 ticks. Um, you're just, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You might have more winners, but it only takes a loser or so just to really mess you up. So I just say don't go for less than 4 ticks. I don't think it's a good idea. I'll leave it at that. And now we're just kind of going sideways here. We ended up getting out of here and moving on down. You can see there's a little bit of a trend line working down here. And we get a little close outside here. We're moving down. So I wouldn't take any more shorts. And we're right into the measured move line angle there. So you might look for a bounce here. There's actually a failed second entry short right here, but we didn't have enough confirmation that this is a trend line. You need at least 3 or 4 bars really to get a trend line going. And you can see it gets those first 2. And this one closes inside, but then it gaps over. So you probably wouldn't have got in that trade anyway. I didn't mark it. But if you could get in that trade, you may take that trade. It's just not real clear there what's going on. And of course, it comes back up and you get a little failed break out of this stuff right here. And another bearish bar there. You're a little bit away from the EMA. I like going short there. It's a little aggressive. It's hard to say what was going on with this trend line. There's no real close outside or anything. But it's really hard to tell what's going on there. You're really just kind of bouncing around between these resistance areas here. I'm sorry, support and resistance areas. And then you get a lower high here. It breaks higher, turns, and goes out the other side again. Go short right there. There's a failed second entry long right there. Again, that one probably should be at least green. But this bar is rather neutral. It's actually more bearish than neutral, but it's still kind of neutral. And this does look like a reversal pattern, but we've already had this break and a new low, so we're probably headed to right here if you saw this range. So if you did, you could probably argue to take that trade. I'll make it at least green. But at the time, again, I just wasn't clear exactly what maybe was going on here. But you can see there's a clear trend line. It is off of it. There's a little 2-bar matching low, which that scared me a little bit too, because it could have ticked down and turned back up. But we could have been, you got to figure we're probably at least coming here, but we could have been going lower yet again. So this has been a really, we still even have a downward bias even through this sideways stuff here because we're making lower highs and lower lows. And so this could have just been a little bounce that turns back into another trend down. So I was just a little leery about getting short right there, right into that double bottom. There is enough room there, so again, I'll make it green. You get a little failed break lower here, but again, everything's still inside that trend line. I don't like it. You get a bounce off the trend line here, but then now it's right back into the highs. But it does, notice it does bounce off that support area, and that is a double test, but it's not a good signal bar. It's almost a doji. It's 1 tick away from being a perfect doji. But when it pushes up and pulls back and tests it again and gives you that reversal bar with plenty of room now, I like going long there. And again, your target would be up here, and once it went on through there, you draw your other line. At first I just had this as the channel, but now you get an equal distance, and you can see that's right where we turned down. I wouldn't go short here yet. You're a long way away from the EMA and all, and you might treat this like a failed breakout, but we may be reversing now. So I was a little leery of it. You could argue for that to be green as well. There's just so many good trades today. It's just hard to, it's hard to want to mark anything green because there's no sense in taking a trade that you're not 100% about. You do get a lower high here, but it's right back into the previous resistance area, acting as support a little bit there. It's right into the EMA. Notice it would have worked. and it's 2 legs down. And you do get a close outside here. You get a higher low here, but it's right back into that resistance. So I'd wait on the true reversal pattern with a failed second entry short. It comes there and it bounces right off. It's acting as resistance or support what was resistance. So now, and you got plenty of room to get out. So I like going long there now. Quick, easy move. Comes back again. We're just kind of going sideways here. But it does push up and make a new high. And if you drew this down here and drug it up to this high and then it turns down here, you got a pretty good clue that, hey, maybe we got a channel here. But at the same time, it turns down right at a measured move up. You can see that line. And it basically turns down right there. So at this point, I'm still looking at this range as being the key pattern, because you don't really have enough information for this brown channel yet, but it's something to be watching at this point. I mean, you can see that line fits really well right across there, and I just drew it off those first couple of swings there. And if you didn't have, even if you didn't have this, you probably should have drawn this line and drug it down, and then you would have been prepared for this happening right here. I still wouldn't take those trades. I didn't mark them, but it would have at least put you in the ballpark. If you saw that, you might consider these. But anyway, we turned down off that high, and you don't get a lower high till right here, and that's the first break of that little trend line. And I like it's a big bearish bar. Go short right there. And no surprise, it turns, and it's either headed here, or if this trend line's in play, it's going to head to this trend line most likely. And look, it bounces right there. You get the higher low right here, and it broke lower and turned and went out. So you might go long there, but it was right into that EMA. You don't know that it's going to keep shooting right on through there like that. So it's a little bit risky getting long right into it when you've been going sideways, and this two-tiered sideways range is still looking like the main pattern at this point. So I'm not crazy about that one. And then you get your reversal pattern right here. I like going long right there. We actually come back again and turn up, but that and again it goes lower and turns up. But now you got right into a triple top right there. I don't think I'd take that. But then it pushes out, pulls back, gives you a little breakout pullback again right off that trend line and right off the EMA, and you got a little room now, and you still got room to here. So I like jumping in there. And off it goes. There's a little breakout pullback right here that bounces off the trend line, but we're getting too far away from the EMA for my taste there, so I wouldn't take it. And then we break outside this trend line. Of course, we turn down right off that trend channel line again. So if you saw that, you might consider entering there. It's a little risky again. You need to wait. You know, when you start trying to pick tops, there's no break of that trend line. Let me get this on here and I'll show you. There's no break of this short-term trend line, and that's clearly a channel right there. There's no doubt in that. I mean, that's obvious. Look how it's bouncing off of it all the way up. There's no break of that yet, so you could turn right back up again. So you got to be careful going short right there. But you're overdue to come back to the EMA, so if you want to be a little bit, if you saw the brown channel and you want to be a little bit aggressive, there it is. Then you get a lower high here. It never breaks lower. It pushes up and gives you what looks like a failed second entry long. But just remember, it's right into the EMA. There's no break of this channel right here, so no retest yet. And you could get trapped right there. And that's exactly what that turns out to be, a trap. And it bounces. And that bar's too big, and this bar is pretty big, but it breaks higher and turns out the other side, gives you a lower high. I like that one because now your new high is in place after the break. It's right into the trend line again, but with it breaking out and turning down, if you went short right there, I'd be okay with that. But again, you're probably better off to wait for it to push through and come back and give you a failed second entry long, and that happens right here, and you get a big bearish bar, so I like going short right there. Down it goes. Then it bounces off this trend line again. I don't have it on here, but let me just show you this. There's a shorter term trend line working down right here too. And you do have a break right there and a new low, and it bounces. And you got a relatively small bar. So you may take that just to ride it back up to here. And this brown channel might turn out to be the dominant pattern right here, and it could continue higher. So I kind of like that one. There's plenty of room back to the EMA, lots of room back to the trend line. And let me show you how I got this two-tier channel. You're probably saying, I mean, you could have drawn these off here, but it wasn't real clear. But when it got on down here, I drew it off these two lows, and I drug it up, and it was fitting really nicely here. So when it bounced on up, I drug it up there, and when it came back here, it confirmed it. And so that's how I got that channel. It wasn't easy to find. So you may not have seen all this, and you may not have felt comfortable going short, or I mean long into any of this. So that's another reason you may not want to go long right there. And you may not even want to take that short right there. So you might be a little uncomfortable just entering right in this area, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. Notice what happens. You turn down, you get another little bounce. It fails, it pushes through, it comes back and tests it, tests the EMA, gives you a failed second entry long. I like going short there. Your short would actually be under here. This is a big bar, but I mean, it was volatile, and you had a lot of these big bars. Your stop would still have to go up here. It didn't get anywhere near testing your safety stop there, but it still has to go up there to be able to safely play that entry. And again, it just drops down. We bounce off the low, come back, basically make a little double bottom, come back, and so that's technically two legs back, or two swings back to the trend line. But that bar is too bullish for a second entry short. So this is basically a lower high, and it didn't break higher, but it just turns, and it tried to trade up, and then it turns and goes right out the other side. So I'm okay with you going short right there. It's a huge bar, but if you wanted to go short there, you could, and you would have gotten just enough to get out before it bounced. But I would have expected it to make a new low, because that's a pretty nice little trend down. So I would have expected it to make a new low, but it didn't. So, you got to take what it gives you. So, and some of you may ask about this long here. It's a double bottom and then a higher low. That's really your signal bar is not bullish enough, and that's a really bullish bar, but I wouldn't be risking any longs, because that's the first close outside this trend line coming down, and you do have two measured legs basically down. Let me show you that in case you didn't see that. You got your first leg right there, and then your second leg started right there, and you can see that is a perfect measured move down to the tick. And so that may be your signal that, hey, we're going to reverse, and it is the first break of the brown trend line, so you might expect a retest of the high, and there it goes. But you really just don't get a chance to get in that, so you don't want to risk a long yet with the fact that we don't have a new low in place, because that's the first break of the blue trend channel, and it looks like it's winning out at this point, so you're still trading it and not the brown one. And somebody asked me that yesterday, when these start playing into each other, how do you know what to do? Well, you don't always know. You got to go with what, you have to find, like moving up here, it's dangerous going short there, but you don't want to go long either. So you probably just want to sit that one out, and then you get the break and a new high, and then it makes sense, and now you're headed lower. So experience, I mean, I hate to just say that word experience, but experience helps a lot. You get used to seeing this and understanding but always ask yourself, what are prices trying to do? When they start heading up this trend line right here, what are they trying to do? They're trying to go back and test something. Most likely they're going back to test these highs, or they're going back to test this trend channel line, if it's in fact valid. And notice that it is. It goes right to that. Get your break, goes back, test it to the tick, and it turns down again. So when it's heading back down, where's it likely headed? What's its target? Probably this midline on these two tiers, this trend channel or this trend line. And if it goes through there, it's probably trying to head down here. And so that's what prices are doing here. And it gets through here and it goes on. So now you figure it's probably heading to try to test these lows. And if you move this line over there off those last closes, you can see that's right where we're getting to. You see it's off those last closes. And if it had kept on going down there, you probably would have looked back down here where it was originally. I think I had it right across there. So just keep that in mind. And, you know, the more you do this, the more you get used to seeing it, it helps. But always ask yourself, what are prices trying to do? Where are they likely going? And they're usually going to some support or resistance area that they've tested before to retest it or to test it again, or to, you know, and that's just what prices do. They bounce around between these levels testing them. And if they hold, they usually reverse. And if they don't hold, they keep going until they test the next one. And eventually they'll test one and it'll hold and it'll reverse. So keep that in mind. That should be helpful to you. But anyway, you can see the day, the two legs down, moved to a new low, and then we kind of had a weak uptrend that looked mostly sideways until about right here, and then you could tell it was a weak uptrend. So anyway, almost 30 minutes worth today. It was a busy day. So we'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. Hope you had a good trading day, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.